So you got to learn how to pivot when you're in business. Hey, what's up guys? My name is Graylan Stewart. I am a virtual wholesaler and entrepreneur. I'm just a real estate investor overall. So if you're new to my channel, welcome and thank you for joining. So my channel is mostly about wholesaling real estate. That's what we do all day, every day, okay? That's our number one exit strategy. And we also do buy and hold properties so that we can have rentals to give us long-term wealth and monthly cash flow. We also do some fix and flip properties to where we can have bigger paydays. But wholesaling is our main strategy because it's quick money. It's kind of like an ATM. As soon as you need some money, just do some more wholesale deals. So that's kind of how we treat our business. Wholesaling first company, okay? So thanks for joining me. Today's video is about pivoting, right? So what do I mean by that? So when you're an entrepreneur, obviously pivoting is vital for your business. If you want to stay in business for a long time, it's often important, okay? So, for example, when I first started in business back in 2011, I started a marketing and advertising company, okay? I had already been doing the business for about 8 years, for a corporation, selling yellow page ads. I've told that story before. But, I was kind of getting tired of working for someone else, making somebody else rich, if you will. And I always had that entrepreneur, kind of spirit anyways. From a little kid, I was always selling things, whether it was selling suckers at school for a quarter, I would go buy the big old box of them at Sam's or whatever when I was a kid, sell them for a quarter each. And, you end up profiting a pretty good amount. I used to make wallets and sell those, when I was a kid. I used to make bracelets and sell those. I would sell t-shirts, whatever I could get my hands on, I would try to sell it. So, so it was a kind of a natural thing for me to actually start a business, once I got a little older. So like I said, I started my marketing and advertising business in 2011. So the way I actually started out, with, it was a direct mail postcard, but it was a giant size postcard, okay? This was my first product that I offered. So I was selling businesses on this idea of, hey, let me put you on my giant postcard so that you can put a coupon on here and a portion of your, your business will be seen on this postcard, so they could just cut it out, bring it into your business. Then that'll prove that they actually used it because you have the coupon in your hand. So that's how I started. I had this huge postcard. I sold, I don't even remember now, 8 to 10 businesses that would fit on this giant postcard, and it's way bigger than I'm letting on. It was like a, I don't even know, it's like a poster board size almost. Not quite, but those big giant poster boards, if you fold that in half, that's about the size of the postcard this was. It was the largest size at the time that the post office would actually allow in the mail. And usually they had to fold that over all the other mail and things like that. So it was super visible. You definitely couldn't miss it. And it was a little bit thicker, so it wasn't like some newspaper thinness. It was thick enough to where people had to notice it, okay? So that was my first product. But I suddenly found out that that wasn't necessarily sustainable because it was like a one-hit wonder, right? I had to keep on selling that every single month or however often I wanted to make money, because I made pretty good money on that, selling these spots for, a couple $1,000s a piece, and the whole postcard, might only cost a few thousand. So a lot of it was profit, but at the same time, it was a one-hit wonder. After I sold all that, I had to go sell another one if I wanted to make more money. And it really wasn't a good idea to have that on a monthly type of deal because you're all sharing it. I probably could have. I almost did that model, but I started brainstorming and thinking, like, what can I do to kind of make that a little more sustainable to where I can have monthly residuals, okay? That's when I pivoted. So this video is about pivoting. So right out of the gate, I started with this giant postcard. I pivoted about 2 months into a direct mail magazine. So I was still selling a bunch of ads, but instead of on some giant postcard, this was an actual full-blown magazine, right? So I did a 28-page magazine, my very first issue. My first issue came out in January of 2012. I started selling into it in September, late September of 2011, okay? So I really had October, November, December. I had 3 full months to sell this product, sell this dream, sell this idea to business owners. Okay, so that's exactly what I did. I made up a mock cover. I got a magazine from somebody in Washington that kind of had something similar along the way that I kind of wanted to do, sort of. And then I made a mock cover and glued it on top of that magazine. So that was my idea. I was just showing people, this is what it will look like. It'll look sort of like this. Picture your ad, you know, like this full page ad or this half page ad or this quarter page ad. So I was just selling a dream, right? But it made more sense to me because now this is a magazine format. People are more likely to keep a magazine as opposed to this postcard. They see the 10 or 12 businesses on there. Okay, I might keep this and I'll throw the rest away, right? So my idea was, hey, magazine format, maybe they'll actually keep this around a little while to where they can use it over and over throughout the entire month, right? So that's what I did. It was more of a subscription type of a base when I sold this advertising, more residual. So I ended up selling people. Initially, I did like 3-month contracts. That was kind of my minimum. So obviously, most people do the minimum because that's just what most people do. They're going to do the least amount possible to test it out, right? So I learned my lesson there too. So I had to pivot again, right? Because after 3 months, man, a lot of these people canceled and I couldn't figure out why. But then after just kind of researching and, you know, kind of interviewing different business owners and doing different things like that, I quickly figured out that it was mainly because they weren't in there long enough. You know, most advertising, for it to actually stick, for it to actually work, it's got to be out there 5, 6, 7 months sometimes. And that's why us as entrepreneurs doing advertising ourselves, you know, if we don't get results right away, we're in a microwave type of world. We want instant results. And that's just not the reality when you're doing marketing, right? So, you know, I figured that out. I'm like, okay, I got to do a 6-month minimum, but I'm going to try to get everybody on 12 months, okay? So I pivoted about 3 more months in. So now I'm like 5 months into the business. Had to pivot twice now, right? So I pivoted into that. I started selling 12-month contracts. My minimum was 6 now. So then people were staying around longer. So after 6 months, they can kind of assess that 6 months and see that it was a good idea. Wow, I actually did get business. I got X amount of coupons during that time period. So then they're more likely to renew with me. And 12 months was even better. It just proved like over a full 12 months, here's what I got. I spent this and this is what I got in return. So my ROI was this. So it made sense to them. My renewal rate was super high, okay? So that made sense. But then slowly after that, people started asking me, well, do you do websites? Do you do SEO? Do you do all these other things? And I always had to say no. We do this direct mail magazine, and I was doing some direct mail postcards, you know, alongside of that, but they had to be in the magazine to even buy a postcard from me. That was just kind of one of my rules, right? So I started doing, I started just referring those websites and SEO customers out to people that I knew or that I heard of, right? So I was literally just giving money away to someone else because I didn't offer it. So then I started thinking, you know, probably at this point I've been in business maybe 12 months. I started thinking, why am I giving all this away to someone else when I could do it myself? So that was the first time I came in contact with virtual assistants. And at the time, I didn't even know what a virtual assistant was. And I didn't even call it that. That wasn't even a term back then in 2012. But I had leveraged someone else in India that approached me that, hey, I can do websites and SEO and things like this for you. So I kind of let them test it out. I tested it out on my own websites, right? Hey, build me a website. Hey, do some SEO on my site. Let's see how it goes. So after a few months, I kind of got to see how they worked and how it panned out. And then I ended up offering that. So that was a pivot again. I added products to the services I was already giving, right? I already had the customer base. So if I have more products and services, that was just that much more I could offer to my current customers. So that's what I did. But then let's just fast forward. You know, along the way, I ended up with 5 magazines in 2 different states, Oklahoma and Colorado. If you've heard my story before, I lived in both states for 8 years, back and forth. I was on a plane every single week, coming or going. But that's for another time. Anyways, so I was doing 5 magazines in 2 different states, and I had digital customers all over the nation, right? Most of them were in Oklahoma or Colorado, but I did have them, you know, all over the country. Different people that found us online through SEO. So, but anyways, after a while, you know, I don't know, 8 years in, doing, my marketing, my magazine, SEO, websites for customers, direct mail postcards, all those things, I was getting burned out. So the point is, I needed to find something else, okay? That's when I decided I needed to pivot again. I didn't know what that looked like or what that felt like or how to even approach that or where to even start. But one time in the middle of the night, I stumbled upon wholesaling real estate. So I've shared that with y'all before. I learned all the beginnings of my journey through YouTube itself, just like you're learning right now. So that's how I got my start in wholesaling real estate. So I quickly found out that, man, this is just sales and marketing. I'm already doing this, but I can just use real estate now as my tool to gain, the income that I want. And it was something different, new and exciting, not calling on mom and pop businesses anymore necessarily. I was just getting burned out, and this was my answer. So I pivoted again 8 years into business. And when I say pivot this time, I completely did a 180. So literally going this way, I completely turned around and went the other way pretty much, right? So it took me a little while. I still had magazines going for a while, but my heart was definitely not in it anymore. If a customer canceled, I didn't even care anymore. I never pursued any new customers. That's obviously the key to any business to grow. You have to acquire new customers, right? New customers means new revenue, because you always have customers that drop off. But the only way to gain is to gain more revenue than you're losing, right? So when a customer would cancel, I really didn't even care. I didn't fight for them like I used to. Like, hey, let me try this. Let's give it another shot. Let me upgrade your ad size, just for a small portion more. Things like that. I didn't even fight for them anymore. I just flat didn't care anymore. That's when I knew pivoting was key, So I did that. So in September of 2018, I started my wholesaling real estate journey. And if you've heard my story, I went out there like hard, right? Did 72,000 my very first month. Did 50 to 70 for the next 3 months in a row. My fifth month, I hit my first six-figure month, 143,000 or 142, somewhere in that ballpark. And I never looked back, y'all. So that's the point of this whole video. I just learned to pivot when the times were right. Just like when I first came into business, I pivoted out of that corporate job, which I didn't even talk about that at the beginning, because I saw the writing on the wall. I was selling yellow pages. And I could see the writing on the wall that industry was slowly dying, right? It was becoming much more of a digital age. That's when I was proactive, and I said, hey, I'm not going to just let this die, because my income was getting less every year, even though I was producing the same numbers or better. That's when I knew I had to pivot out of that into my business. So then several pivots later, here I am doing wholesaling. And then even through wholesaling, I've had pivots in this business. I pivoted out from being a solopreneur into building a team with systems and processes behind it to where we can actually do consistent deals. But not only that, I pivoted into also doing buy and hold real estate for long-term wealth. I pivoted into doing some fix and flips for the bigger paydays for my whole team. And we've also added novations recently within the last 6 months. So that was a pivot into adding another exit strategy. So that's the whole point of this entire video, is pivoting is essential. When you're an entrepreneur, you have to pivot. And that's my message for you today. So hopefully all that makes sense. I don't know how the quote goes, but I've heard it somewhere, when you're just kind of doing the same thing and you're stagnant and not growing, that's actually your decline. That's when you start dying, right? The only way you keep growing is you keep pushing, you keep striving for more, you keep wanting to do better. Otherwise, you're just stagnant and you end up kind of declining over time. And that's where I was exactly in my sales and marketing advertising company. I was just stagnant for a while because I was really burned out, wasn't actively trying to grow it. And slowly it started to decline. So luckily, I searched, because I knew I needed to pivot, and then I found wholesaling. So there you go, guys. Hopefully this was beneficial to you and you saw value in it. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. If you thought it sucked, give me a thumbs down. I got thick skin, I'm cool with that too. But nevertheless, you stuck around this long, so please hit the subscribe button. That'd greatly help me. And anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good one.